Jai Hind, dear students. I am Dr. Preeti, and today we are going to revise the question transportation in plants. In plants, there is transportation of water and food. The transportation of water takes place through xylem, and transportation of food mainly takes place through phloem. This transportation of xylem is not requiring much energy by the plant. The plant need not spend energy for transportation of water. How this transportation of water as well as minerals occurs in plants? Let's see that. For transportation of water and minerals, there are mainly two processes involved. Those two processes are transpiration and the second is absorption of minerals by the roots. First, let's discuss about transpiration. Transpiration means evaporation of water from the surface of leaves. So, when water gets evaporated from the surface of the leaves, the water in turn is absorbed by the roots from the soil. Let's see how it happens. Xylem is a continuous column. Transportation of water occurs through xylem, and this xylem is a continuous column. It's just like a straw. So, when you sip the water from the top of the straw, then the water from the bottom of the glass also gets sucked up. The xylem is having a similar structure to that. The xylem of roots is connected with the xylem of stem, branches, and then the leaves. So the xylem is a continuous column. When water gets evaporated from the surface of leaves, that creates a negative pressure there. In that area, there is a negative pressure created, there is a suction pull created, and we call that pull as transpiration pull. It's occurring due to transpiration, so we call it as transpiration pull. So, water gets evaporated from the surface of the leaves. The water, this area creates a suction pull or transpiration pull that pulls the water from the below levels. That pulls the water from the under levels, and so ultimately this pull reaches up to the roots, and the roots absorb the water from the soil. So whatever water is there in the soil, that will be pulled upwards because of this evaporation of water from the surface of leaves. This is known as transpiration. The second method involved during the transportation of water and minerals is absorption of minerals by the roots. The roots absorbs ions like calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. All these minerals, all these ions are absorbed by the roots. Now remember one thing. Wherever there is solute, water has a tendency to move towards that solute. Okay? This movement of water is known as osmotic pressure. You have seen that in daily life also. Just put some salt in a plate and you will find that after some time that salt will get moistened. That will attract moisture from the environment and that will become wet. This is because these ions, these minerals, whatever minerals are there, wherever solutes are there, that absorbs the water, that pulls the water towards itself. So when the roots are absorbing these ions are only absorbed by the roots try to absorb these ions, then what happens? The water that is present in the soil passively moves towards it. Automatically that water from the soil moves towards these ions, and that creates a region of high pressure in the root cells, and that pushes the water in the upward direction. Okay. This method of transportation of water is effective only up to a certain height only. But when the water has to reach to great heights, that is up to the top of the trees, of very huge trees, the method that will be really effective is transpiration. Okay. So by absorption of minerals by the roots, the water could ascend upwards only up to a certain limit, only up to a certain height also. Okay. Now coming to transportation of food. One more thing about transportation of water is that it is unidirectional. The water from the roots will be ascending only in the upward direction. So remember, the transportation of water is unidirectional. It is just in single direction. It's different from that of food. Now let's consider about the transportation of food. Transportation of food occurs through phloem. This phloem has sieve cells and companion cells. These sieve cells and companion cells helps in the transportation of food. Not only food, along with the food, hormones are also transported through the phloem. This food could be in the form of sucrose, that is a form of sugar. Sucrose is a form of sugar, like glucose is a form of sugar. Similarly, sucrose is also a form of sugar. So this food transports, the transportation of foods occurs for the transportation of sucrose, amino acids, and phloem is also going to help in the transportation of hormones. How these all get transported in the plants? So let's see, if this is the leaf where the food is prepared, then the transportation of food always requires the plant to spend energy. The plant has to spend energy to transport food. Now what happens? The sucrose moves into the phloem, and for this the plant spends some energy to transport the sucrose into the phloem. When the sucrose enters the phloem, water has a tendency to move towards solute, as I told you. So water also moves towards the phloem. Now this water and the sucrose and the soluble food, they are both there in the phloem. Now this creates a region of high pressure in this particular area where it has entered. This high pressure area is there, and so the food and the hormones and the water will be moving to the areas where there is low pressure. Okay, so by this way the plant can transport the food from the areas where it is there to the areas where it is required. For example, the plants store their food in the roots. So from the roots, the plants can send this food to the birds. When the birds are growing, then the food needs to be transported to the birds. So from the roots, the food is transported to the birds based on this only. Similarly, the food is prepared in the leaves and it gets stored in the roots. It goes to the birds as well. So you can make out that the transportation of food is multi-directional. It occurs in both the directions. It will be in the upward as well as in the downward direction. Okay, so this is all about transportation of food and water and minerals in plants. I hope you understood it. So you can take a screenshot if you want. That's all for today. Good day, everyone.